Hey guys, welcome to The Strong Young Man. The red pill from the Matrix is one of two pills, the other being a blue pill. Taking the red pill results in understanding an unpleasant but otherwise life-changing truth, and taking the blue pill results in remaining in blissful ignorance. There are many red pill truths, but in the context of the manosphere, it means to understand and accept the unpleasantries of female nature that society keeps hidden from men. Part of being a strong man is seeking truth in all realms, and taking the red pill is a big part of that. Take the red pill and become fully conscious of the unpleasant truths of female nature in order to become the strongest possible version of yourself. I'm going to assume from watching my content that you know what female nature is, but for those of you who don't, it's covered off in episodes 4 and 7, but you'll also find useful information on female nature in episodes 29, 30, 33, and 65. If you're going to watch these episodes, do so in numerical order. Try to approach these concepts with an open mind so you understand what I'm trying to convey without becoming compromised by what you already know or by what you want to understand. When men hear these concepts for the first time, they are very, very reluctant to accept them. You believe that easily, which you hope for earnestly. Publius Terentius Affa. Facing red pill truths is uncomfortable to say the least, and most men are too lazy to explore these concepts, mainly because they live in a world with reaffirming distractions. No hard feelings from my side if you reject the red pill when it's offered to you. You aren't ready to begin accepting the truth yet. I hope that in time you will come to understand. I hope that you come to understand it before you are blindsided by the dark side of female nature. If you aren't ready to embark on a journey of awareness, then I'll save you the time. Do not watch this episode. Come back when you're ready. Come back after having an epiphany or a traumatic experience at the hands of a woman. The community will readily accept you. Red pill men are very accepting of former blue pill men. Almost everyone is blue-pilled at some stage due to the conditioning from the feminine imperative and the men who evangelize their own blue pill conditioning onto others. In the words of John Perazzo from The Myths That Divide Us, it requires courage to cast the accumulated myths of a lifetime to the wind. Our natural desire for simplicity, certitude, and the approval of others occasionally causes us to defend even our most flawed worldviews as if our very lives depended on them. Dead belief systems are difficult to bury, for in doing so, we enter a world we do not recognize. We watch the carefully crafted towers of our understanding crash down in ruins, and we lose an integral piece of the only reality we have known, reinforced and imprinted on our minds by 1,000 voices, internal and external. Most men operate in a state of complete non-acceptance of female nature for their entire life, turning a blind eye to the little clues about unflattering realities that cross into their preconscious. This is mostly because these truths don't suit them personally, or because the blue pill conditioning is drummed into them so heavily by the feminine imperative. If you have an open mind, you can come into consciousness of female nature early, which can prevent you from experiencing trauma at the hands of women. Learn the truth when it's easiest, while you are young, and you can have it serve you the most utility. It's a lot more productive if you are proactive rather than reactive. If you elect to take the red pill prior to a traumatic event, it'll allow you to explore red pill truths at your own pace. Being proactive will also mean that you have little to no resentment towards women because you understand that they just can't help but behave instinctually, just like all animals of the animal kingdom. Once aware of female nature, it can be used to your advantage any way you please. It can be used to climb the corporate ladder or to excel in your chosen field. You can use your understanding to build a harem of women, or even to build more fulfilling relationships with female family members. Awareness will also have the most benefit to your intimate relationships with women because you'll stop idealizing women for who they can never be for you, an unconditional lover. Awareness of female nature also allows you to be informed of the darker aspects of female nature, which means that you can implement safeguards or preventative measures to be able to associate with women without experiencing their ruthlessness. So knowing all that you know from my other episodes, it's time to take the red pill. Accept the unpleasant truths of female nature covered on my channel. If you decide to take the red pill, you will have a very difficult time accepting the bitter truths that come along with it. It requires you to understand some pretty radical female instincts. The drastic changes to your understanding are often very hard to wrap your head around. This is why very few men go down this path. The red pill is a very hard pill to swallow, often vomited up due to the body's reaction to experiencing something so drastically different to the conditioning programmed into you since you were born. The blue pill conditioning is a perfect example of a mental schema. The blue pill mental schema is the framework that represents the false understanding that you were taught about female nature and women in general from a young age. Once learned, a schema is very, very hard to unlearn, especially if it's been conditioned over a long time and from an early age when the brain was developing. The human brain resists changing the template learned in youth because it makes up our most original operating software. The data input in our formative years is deemed of the highest importance and thus is hardest to unlearn. For some of us, it is integrated into our egoic mind so much that it actually makes up a part of who we are. Because of this, we resist changing it, because to do so, we must disidentify from our former self and form a new identity based on our new understanding. This means that the piece of ourself that was attached to the former belief system must be killed off too. The psychological death of oneself is almost just as traumatic as a physical death. To destroy a blue pill mental schema that is so comprehensive, our ego must take a massive hit, and this is often too painful, so most men will not endure this painful experience until they are forced to. Schemas modify the lens that we see things through, and so they can often persist despite repeated evidence that contradicts the flawed belief system and despite the evidence that indicates the need to modify it. Most of the time, this continual barrage of evidence must come along with an extremely traumatic experience in order to catalyse the deep reflection needed to kill off the blue pill mental schema. The first-hand experience of an intense trauma means that something went wrong, and cognizant individuals have no alternative but to modify their incorrect belief system. Most of the time, this will only happen if the pain from the trauma required to initiate deep conscious thought supersedes the pain of killing off the blue pill mental schema. Unfortunately, most men will only accept red pill truths after they endure a traumatic experience at the hands of a woman. They are reactive, not proactive. At this time, things become very difficult because to rebuild one's entire mental framework from the ground up becomes that much more difficult when it's combined with trauma. Developing resistance to the truth because you don't want to understand it is not rational, and it will only increase the likelihood that you experience suffering at the hands of women. My hope for you is that you kill off this blue pill mental schema before this happens. Trauma or no trauma, the process of accepting the disturbing truth about female nature is still very hard. As I mentioned a moment ago, to reformat a mental schema, a person must kill off a part of themselves. This psychological death of part of yourself is very painful, and this is why you resist reformatting your blue pill mental schema. The reformatting of a blue pill mental schema into one that accepts the unpleasant truths about female nature is done in 5 distinct stages. This is known as the Kubler-Ross model, or the 5 stages of grief. This model was created by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, inspired by her work on terminally ill patients. It was created based on her observations of how these patients accept their death, and it's relevant to the acceptance of any death, physical, or in this case, psychological. If this is your first time hearing the truth, then you will most likely experience a state of shock and complete non-acceptance. In a state of non-acceptance, you allow your ego to control your actions. Your ego is going to want to build a fierce resistance to the truth about female nature. This is normal. An ego that is so deeply invested in an understanding can't afford to believe the real truth, because then everything they have come to understand about women must change. Your resistance to red pill truths that you don't want to believe in is going to be proportional to the extent that you don't want to believe them, probably because you have a massive investment in your blue pill mental schema. The level of proof required to warrant a reformatting of the blue pill mental schema is also proportional to the amount that you don't want to believe red pill truths. The more you don't want to see the truth, the more energy you'll put into resisting the truth, and the more examples you will require to make you see the truth. This behaviour is known as the confirmation bias, and this heuristic happens within your subconscious. The resistance to the truth will first manifest as denial. Denial allows you to go on with your familiar conditioning. It alleviates you from the deep reflection required in order to change your entire belief system. Denial itself is also subconscious. It wouldn't work if it were conscious. Denying the truth does not only mean that you are ignorant to the truth, but it also means that you are ignorant to the fact that you are even ignorant to the truth. You don't even know that you don't know. This is dangerous because unconsciousness leads to denial, which leads to more unconsciousness. Only consciousness can recognize the suitable and distinguish it from the unsuitable. In order to reject an unsuitable concept, you need to be conscious of why it's unsuitable. You can't just reject it because it's inconvenient. Where no consciousness is present, no reflection occurs, and so the legitimacy of a concept is neither proven nor disproven. If you have a strong mind, and you can humble your ego, you can get past the denial that controls most men's thoughts. The next stage in the Kubler-Ross model is anger. Your anger will come from many sources. Most people feel some form of frustration at themselves from feeling ignorant to the truth for so long. Being alerted to your own ignorance is distressing, especially for people who regard themselves as intellectuals. Your anger might also come as a result of your compliant role in the blue pill conditioning that is pushed onto men. Maybe you shamed other red pill aware men who are trying to help you. Don't be frustrated at yourself for your own role in this propaganda. This is something that has been cultivated in you since birth by the feminine imperative. Everyone is brainwashed to some degree, and directing the anger at yourself in the form of self-loathing is not productive. Another direction that I see men project their anger is directly onto women for their own instincts. This anger is actually still anger for themselves, but it's projected outwards onto women. This projection enables them to disidentify from the anger, alleviating their suffering but transferring it to the target of the projection. It also simultaneously enables the individual to detach themselves from taking personal responsibility for changing their life to realign with the correct understanding of female nature. Instead, the blame is lumped onto women to serve as a psychological scapegoat. Blaming and shaming women for their evolved sexual preferences, which is totally instinctive, is causing a divide between the genders, and we already have enough of a divide from feminism. Part of your journey into accepting red pill truths is understanding that the red pill is not about hating women. I can't emphasize that enough. The red pill is about awareness and being informed. I also need to emphasize that the red pill is not about changing women. You can't change 2.4 million years of evolutionary biology. No one tries to change a bee so that it doesn't sting. We all know they can sting if they feel threatened. It's programmed into their biology. Female instincts are the same. The best use of your anger in this phase of acceptance is to channel your aggression into something meaningful, rather than directing it outwards at others or at yourself in the form of self-loathing. The word aggression is actually derived from the Latin words ad and gradi, which means to proceed towards. Your aggression is a powerful source of energy that should be used productively to proceed towards your personal and professional goals. Don't squander this dark energy on others. Refer back to episode 94 for your step-by-step process on how to use your wrath to win. The next stage in accepting red pill truths is depression. This is the lowest point of the cycle, and it's where some men let it get the best of them. Seeking relief from suffering through a physical death rather than enduring the psychological death is not an acceptable solution to the problem. I've spoken a lot on depression before. It's essentially the body's biological response to an undesirable situation. Your depression should serve as a continued reminder that you have problems that need to be solved. In this instance, it's a psychological problem causing your depression. Embrace this discomfort and allow it to cause you enough pain to motivate you to solve your psychological problem so that you can put an end to the misery and start living a successful life as a red pill aware man. The next stage in the Kubler-Ross model is to embrace the red pill truths and obtain more context with your newly acquired red pill lens. Go on a journey of self-discovery. You are much more likely to believe something you discover for yourself rather than something you are told. Approach everything with an open mind. If you still think I'm wrong about female nature, rather than deny its existence, explore it for yourself. Bring the concept into your conscious and make yourself understand it better. Only then will you be able to confirm or deny the validity of what I'm saying. This is all part of climbing up the hierarchy of competence that I went over in episode 72. If you aren't yet ready to deal with women face to face, then it may help to withdraw from women temporarily. In this case, I recommend exploring YouTube channels that expose female nature in women that you aren't emotionally tied to. Fresh and Fit run daily podcasts as well as a night show that demonstrate female nature live. Strong Successful Male is another channel that pumps out daily videos and is worth subscribing to. The red pill truths would also not be as refined as they are today without the archetypal wise old man, Rollo Tomassi. I'll put links to their channels in the description. I'm not affiliated with them in any way, but I have found their videos to be extremely enlightening. I enjoy alerting myself to the behavioural patterns to watch out for and learning lessons from the stories of other men. Watching this content may trigger anger or resentment, especially if they hit a nerve. Try to listen to these stories without getting emotionally involved. Remember that the red pill is not about hating women for something that is instinctual for them. Don't use your emotions to make connections or inferences from behaviour that don't follow logic. Do your best to study these stories as a student of female nature, studying them like David Attenborough studies the creatures of the animal kingdom. Allow yourself to become fascinated and perplexed by their peculiar instinctive behaviour, so different from your own. You may even come to appreciate women more because you have a greater understanding of what makes them tick. This is the most effective way to take the red pill. You can still enjoy your daily dose of the red pill and have successful relationships with the women in your life. When you finally understand female nature, then you can integrate yourself into society with women on a more complete level, with reality as the basis of the interaction. You will begin to have successful relationships with women with altered expectations. This will soften the blow if your woman leaves you because you don't provide her with sufficient alpha and long-term security to subjugate her hypergamy. You won't be crushed when their actions don't reflect the unconditional love that you offer her and have previously expected from her. Understand that men and women can love each other, just in their own way. The sooner you understand this, the happier you will be in your relationships. The journey of unplugging may be a long journey for some. These concepts can take a long time to wrap your head around. Don't think that there is something wrong with you if you can't understand all of these red pill concepts immediately. You need many hours of social interactions with women after becoming red pill aware to apply your new understanding to your surrounding environment. You also need to spend many hours reflecting on past social interactions to build on your understanding of female nature. Everything you experienced prior to your understanding will need to be seen in this new light, whether it's through new experiences or through reflection. It's almost like seeing things through a microscope. Everything that you see can be seen with greater clarity and accuracy through the red pill lens. It takes about 12 to 18 months to complete the course of acceptance of these red pill truths. Try not to evangelize your new understanding onto others during this time. You aren't ready yet. Unplugging guys is dirty work and will be met with a fierce resistance and has personally costed me friendships. People will challenge you and attempt to convince you that you're delusional. You need to prevent this from infiltrating your mind during the grieving process because you haven't yet developed the full understanding to counter their arguments. People who unplug can plug themselves straight back in due to the resistances from others as well as themselves. Once you have become conscious of the red pill and have completely awoken to the truth, there is no going back. Denying female nature when you are completely aware of its existence means that you are aware of it, but you are actively rejecting it. This will not work. You cannot make a model irrelevant by ignoring its existence. Red pill concepts offer an explanation for all female behaviour. Just wait until you've completed this transformation before prescribing people with their own dose of the red pill. The common response that I often receive from Australian men and women who resist the red pill when I offer it to them are to question where these concepts came from. What psychological trauma is behind these polarising beliefs? Of course, I must be all sorts of fucked up and traumatised to believe in concepts so radical. Fresh and Fit receive an overwhelming bombardment of some derivative of Who Hurt You that they printed t-shirts. If you preach red pill truths to people, you will eventually be hit with this line. Just understand that this is a straw man argument, which is usually what emotional people resort to when they have no way of articulating their point or are too lazy to try. People assume that psychological trauma must be experienced in order for me to evangelise beliefs that differ from the beliefs their ego is invested in, and that the deviation of my beliefs is a response from some form of PTSD. For the record, no woman has traumatised me in any meaningful way. I've been very blessed with my relationships with women, including my mother and my two sisters. I've never been cheated on, and of the abundance of women I've dated, the breakups have always been on my terms. In order for me to see the truth, I've had to do my research. I've read hundreds of psychology, relationship and marriage books, read hundreds of studies and listened to over 300 hours of people's anecdotes in every scenario and from every point of view. With the knowledge I've gained, I've been able to verify these theories through observing interactions with people in the real world. Being single for my entire teenage years, as well as for the bulk of my 20s, enabled me to make these links while remaining emotionally detached. In a way, it's been easy for me to recognise it because I've not been too close to see it. Truth be told, it might have actually served me better if I'd had a traumatic experience at the hands of a woman. That way, I'd be able to provide an example to help the ignorant people understand. If you are awoken to the red pill from a traumatic experience, then you have evidence to support female nature. Use this example to counter the who hurt you response when you attempt to unplug people for yourself. When you inform the blue pill ideologues of your trauma, you'll often be faced with words to the effect of not all women are like that. In truth, this is actually incorrect. It's called female nature, and it relates to all women. They are all wired the same, but not all women will leverage female nature to their advantage and at your expense. Understanding female nature means understanding that a woman's evolved inclinations are contingent upon context and culture, and they also vary with personal condition. The reason the red pill came about to begin with is because men required an explanation as to why females were behaving in peculiar but consistent patterns. Once men were able to compare notes with other men across societies around the world, the red pill was very quickly conceptualized. It had to be. Us rational men could not continue to write off all these examples as peculiar coincidences. For those of you who've made it this far, if you haven't fully wrapped your head around female nature, confront the difficult concept now, or you'll suffer in the long term. If you don't accept the red pill, the women in your life will drive you insane because you won't be able to understand why they behave in certain ways in certain situations. Men are logical and always seek to draw logical conclusions for every problem. You will never be able to apply your logic to her behaviour if you don't understand red pill truths. Ignoring female nature doesn't prevent you from experiencing the darker side of it either. If anything, your ignorance makes you more susceptible to it. It will almost certainly hit you at some stage. It's just a matter of how much of the tab you want to run up before the bill comes due. Today's final thought comes from the spiritual guider Eckhart Tolle from his book The Power of Now. As far as the still unconscious majority of the population is concerned, only a critical limit situation has the potential to crack the hard shell of the ego and force them into surrender and so into the awakened state. A limit situation arises when through some disaster, drastic upheaval, deep loss or suffering, your whole world is shattered and doesn't make sense anymore. It is an encounter with death, be it physical or psychological. The egoic mind, the creator of this world, collapses. Out of the ashes of the old world, a new world can then come into being. There is no guarantee, of course, that even a limit situation will do it, but the potential is always there. Some people's resistance to what is even intensifies in such a situation, and so it becomes a descent into hell. In others, there may only be a partial surrender, but even that will give them a certain depth and serenity that were not there before. Parts of the ego shell break off, and this allows small amounts of the radiance and peace that lie beyond the mind to shine through. Thanks for watching today's episode. In episode 124, I'll go through why men and women cannot be friends. Subscribe and click the bell icon to be notified when it drops. Catch you then.